bonus, not a normal episode.
Remake Rewind.
All right. Thank you for listening to Remake Rewind. This is a bonus episode. It's been a while.
Bonus episode.
Bonus. I don't know. But we were doing the... We did 2 episodes back to back on a topic episode, which was movies that weren't technically remakes, but pretty much were. So we did Speed and Die Hard, because Speed is just Die Hard.
What is the name of those? We need a name for those types of movies. We kind of been calling them spiritual successors, but that's not really accurate.
Yeah, I don't know what they're called. I mean,
they're
knockoffs. I mean, they called them Die Hard knockoffs for 20 years, but I don't know if that's necessarily fair.
I mean, I kind of don't know how fair you need to be, because like Fast and Furious is a pretty shameless remake or ripoff of Point Break, but they don't have to pay any royalties to anybody involved with Point Break, you know?
No, not at all. And I mean, we go back, watch... You can watch them on YouTube if you really wanted to, but it's really just the still for about an hour. But listen to those episodes. But we really did break down Fast and the Furious and pretty much how it is almost a shot-for-shot remake of Point Break. But while we were doing that, we decided
it's
that
cars instead of surfboards taken to the streets.
Exactly.
So I interrupted your nice spiel.
No, it's all good, man. But we decided it'd be fun to just watch the rest of the Fast and the Furious movies and talk about them for a little bit. And that's what we decided to do. So for at least a few more weeks, we're going to do some bonus episodes and cover the rest of the Fast, the FF. I don't know if we're going to make a shorthand, but we're going to cover the Fast I almost said trilogy. Just the Fast saga.
The Fast franchise.
Call it. Yeah.
The
Fast
Furious franchise.
The FF.
We should change it every episode, just like they do.
Yeah, let's do it. That does drive me crazy, the nomenclature of the movies. Like,
I think it's pretty funny. I think they know what they're doing. I think they're trolling.
So this one made sense. Too Fast, Too Furious. And
sure.
we'll get into the other ones. I think the only one that really bothered... The 2 that bothered me was the 4th one, where it was just Fast and Furious, and they just took away the thes.
Yeah.
And then Fate of the Furious. Totally cool with that name. Why didn't they just go F8 and make it Fate of the Furious?
They did.
Surprised they didn't do that.
They did
it overseas. They didn't do it in the U.S.
I saw it in the U.S., but...
Oh, did you?
But they didn't make it the center of the marketing.
Yeah, this should have been the main thing.
They should have?
Yeah. Just go all in. You know what this is.
They rightfully thought that American audiences are too dumb.
Yeah, they are. I worked at a movie theater for 3 years, and having people say what movies I wanted to watch, or when they thought they were being clever and making fun of like the Fantastic Four, they'd be like, the Fantastic Four. Like, they would just try to like shoehorn a fuck into Fantastic Four. The Fantastic Fucks are like, come on, dude. Like,
well, that's why M. Night Shyamalan Ding Dong is the thing that people still say.
I've never heard anybody say that.
You've never heard that? Oh, that's a thing.
I've never heard anybody be that racist.
Write in if that's a thing. Oh, no, I've heard it a million times. It's terrible. I think Family Guy started it, actually.
No, I'm sure they did. But let's get into Too Fast, Too Furious.
Yeah, man.
What do you think about this movie overall? You have fun?
Yeah, I had fun for the most part. I think it's funny looking back on it in context, because without thinking about the other movies that came after this, if you just think about this when it came out, it doesn't feel like a very good sequel. It is totally removed from the other movie. Vin Diesel's not in it. It continues Brian's story, but not any of the other stuff. And I think Brian's story is it's not terribly interesting. Yeah. I mean, he's in Florida now, and he's like evading the law, sort of. So it feels kind of boring, but I think with the context of the other movies now, you know, in hindsight, it feels more like Hobbs and Shaw than anything else. Like, it feels like a spinoff. This is just like a little a sideways sequel that deals with what Brian's up to, you know, while Vin is running around Mexico doing Mexico drag races or whatever. So if you look at it in that way, I don't know, it's actually kind of interesting. And you also get like the introduction of Tyrese and Ja Rule.
Roman Pierce.
Yeah.
It wasn't Ja Rule, it's Ludacris.
Or Ludacris, rather.
Yeah,
Ja Rule's replacement.
Yeah, so the thing that's funny, I said this in the last episode when we were talking about the first movie, that the first one is probably my least favorite. And as soon as I said it, I was like, that's not true. The second one is my least favorite. It's just for whatever reason, the first one is the one I watched the least, just because it had some bad CG on the cars at certain points. This movie,
Yeah,
from
this
like
one's worse.
Well, but
CG.
I would still say from a production standpoint, like there are more cars actually being driven in this one than the original one.
Yeah, especially in that one scene.
Yeah, that's absurd. I have a lot to say about that
Yeah, I do
scene,
too.
but I think the problem I have with this movie, and I said it when we were talking about the first movie, was Brian just gets too good. And now, granted, we don't know the exact timeline that this is after, but he's supposed to be on the lam. I can understand that he was doing some races to get money to, finance his trip from Los Angeles to Miami. But
You said that last week, and it really doesn't bother me.
It bothers me because specifically in the racing scene that opens up this movie, there's a point where he's racing. I don't know his name, but he's in so many movies. But the character's name is Jack. He was the guy that was in like the orange car at the beginning of the movie.
Oh yeah, the token Latino dude.
Yeah. No, the black guy, the light skinned black guy.
Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah,
The token black guy.
Yeah, so he is set up to be like the best racer out of the 4 racers that Brian's going to be racing, or the 3 racers that Brian's going to be racing, and he's in the lead for most of the race. And then there's a point where he takes a turn too wide, and Brian's all like super smug, like too wide, and then like takes the lead, but then immediately loses the lead. And the only reason why Brian wins is Tej like lifts a drawbridge up, so they have to do this like ridiculous jump to finish the race. And it's like, how is Brian being this cocky? Like, he's like the Vin Diesel in this movie. Like, he's the one that everybody's looking up to. He's the best and everything. But it's like, he's struggling for money. He's living out of his friend's houseboat. Like, why is he the guy who's so smug and so good? And he's doing like way cooler tricks than he could do in the previous movie. Like, I just think he got too good too fast.
I'll tell you, Mike. The answer is that it's not a very good movie.
Yeah.
To your point, I think that about this movie not being as good as the first one. I think the first one is just much more cinematic
I think so.
in like every way.
But like you brought up, and I think you hit it just on the head with the last one, is that like almost every scene, almost every line of dialogue in the first movie could be in a trailer. Mm-hmm. And I don't feel like this one is as cool. I don't think that you have as many of those like teaser moments outside of the cars. Like there's a lot of cool car stunts, but that's about it.
This movie feels like it was made for television. Feels like a direct to video.
Yeah, the dialogue sucks in this movie.
Even just the way it's shot, man. It's shot like so evenly and so brightly that it's just not cinematic at all.
It's more like a car commercial.
Yeah, exactly. It's a really boring, ugly movie. And I'm not ugly. It's like a mediocre looking movie.
I agree.
Yeah. And to that point, fucking James Remar is in this, man. And James Remar has made a career out of showing up as like the secondary bad guy or anti-hero in bad sequels.
So what's funny is I refer to him as Dexter's dad in all my notes for this because one, like he played Dexter's dad, but this also takes place in the same city as Dexter. So I was yeah, maybe he was off Homicide for a little bit and he was on, drugs, like he was on Vice for a little bit. But I've got a lot to say about him. But one last thing I want to say about that opening race that drove me crazy was, I guess 2 things. I thought it was hilarious that Suki had like a computer that while she was in like last place.
The token Asian chick, you mean?
Yeah. She had a computer that was reacting angrily that she was in like last place.
They really play it fast and loose with those computers.
Yeah.
Everybody has one of those.
Those, when they jump off or go over the drawbridge, like this whole race is 10 grand. Like the winner only gets about $10,000. And it's like, so let's say you go off this thing. She got second place. She gets nothing. And she's all excited that she finished the race, but she lost her bumper. Her like undercarriage is destroyed. Even his car scrapes the hell out of it. It's like, okay, you won 10,000, but you're putting 5,000 into repairs on your car at least. Like, was it really worth it?
Yeah. I mean, that whole opening scene is silly. Because it's of dumb. That,
yeah.
What I've sort of hinted at, that like there's all these token characters representing their various groups, it just felt very like intentional and lazy and weird.
I agree.
They're like, all right, we need to, let's make sure we have a black guy in here. We're gonna have a Latino guy. We're gonna have a woman, but she should also be Asian. We're gonna get both of those groups, and
and then have a white guy for the cartel.
Yeah. Well, that's a different. We're talking about the intro still. Let's
Yeah.
save that. And also that intro scene, this like party before the race or whatever, goes on for like 10 minutes. And it's just like, they'll show the party and people dancing, like maybe some credits for a minute or like 30 seconds or something. And then like they'll talk trash to each other, or like the dude will talk to his girlfriend and be like, oh, you think I'm going to win, right? And she's like, well, you better pay rent or whatever. And then they show the party in a little bit more, and like, the girls are dancing, and then they'll talk a little bit more trash. And then like Brian drives up, or he's driving to it, and then he shows up and he's got like the crazy stuff coming out of his car. And they talk trash a little bit more. And like 7 minutes into this thing, I was like, when's the fucking movie going to start? What are we doing?
Well, and it drove me crazy because they were all like, oh my God, Brian, like if we knew he was going to be the fourth, we wouldn't have shown up kind of thing. And it's just like, really? Like
because Tej is like, I can choose anybody, right?
Yeah. It was funny. I guess we should get into like Tej and Roman Pierce, because they become staples of the franchise, but they are both drastically different characters in this movie. And we'll talk more about them obviously when we move into like subsequent films. But Tyrese is my least favorite character in the franchise.
But this is his best movie, right?
But this is his first one. He is a much better character in this movie than he is in the others. Like when I was watching this one, I'm like, if this Roman Pierce was the Roman Pierce we got in the rest of the movies, I'd be totally on board with Tyrese, because like this one, he has, this inherent distrust of Brian the entire movie, which has his reasons why he doesn't trust Brian, but he also like has this chip on his shoulder from doing time, and he is a legit criminal, and like he was a bad dude, not like
he's got some edge.
He didn't kill a guy or anything like that. He didn't put somebody, almost kill a guy like Dom, but he is a criminal. And then when you get into the rest of the movies, he's just like changes into the comic relief character, and like he doesn't have any skills. But like in this, he's really good at the destruction derbies. He's he lights some stuff on fire, so you can see him being almost like the muscle kind of guy. Like he has agency and he has skills that just disappear in subsequent films, and that drove me crazy.
Yeah. I mean, they totally relegated him to the comic relief. I think he had a few jokes in this one, and they just sort of played that up in the next movies. None of these people are in Tokyo Drift, right?
Sorry?
Tokyo
None
Drift
of these people.
So
Tokyo Drift, and that's what I want to talk to you about later on at the episode when we decide, do we want to do Tokyo Drift next? Do we want to do these movies in the order they were released, or do we want to do it canonically, chronologically, however you want to say it? Because technically the third movie is really between the 6th and the 7th.
That might be fun to go back to that in between the other movies where like shit is gone off the rails.
Do we want to go back? So we'll do this one. We'll do the third movie as the 7th movie.
Yeah. So we'll do 4.
All right.
Yeah, I'm into that.
But yeah, so that works for me. And these guys. So Tej, who I like later on in the movie. So I'd say in like 5, 6, 7. Tej is actually one of my favorite characters by Ludacris. I think he's pretty solid. I think he puts in a good performance in the subsequent movies, and he kind of becomes like the group's Q. Like he's the scientific guy, he's the smart guy, he's Donatello. And in this, he's like,
I love that.
He's just kind of like a gangster guy who has his hand in everything.
Tej is Donatello. Vin is Leonardo.
No, Vin would have to be Raphael, where he's like has the potential to be the leader, but he's too angry. Because Brian is still kind of the guy. Yeah, because I think Brian, like even when you go into like the 5th, 6th movie, you still have Brian kind of calling the shots. Like when they're in Brazil, Brian's the one like, hey, why don't we do this? So I think Brian is Leo.
Who's Michelangelo? Tyrese?
Michelangelo would have to be, it would be Tyrese, or when we get into like the 4th movie, they're in the very beginning of the 4th movie, they're in the opening of the 4th movie, and then they play a really big role in the 5th movie. But the brothers, like the Dominican brothers, could be Michelangelo.
And Gal Gadot is April O'Neil. No, Letty's April O'Neil.
No, I don't. No, Letty would have to be Venus, the female Ninja Turtle that came up in the live action TV show.
Yeah, that's the one. You're right.
Casey would have to be. I feel like Casey would be Han.
Not Adams. Is it? What's the Casey's last name?
It's Casey Jones.
Jones. Yeah, I said Adams.
Yeah, so that would have to be
Casey
Han,
Adams.
I think.
Okay.
But maybe we should.
That.
Maybe we'll watch a few more of these, and then we'll.
Wait, who's Splinter?
Iron that. Splinter would.
Kurt Russell.
Shit. Kurt Russell when he shows up, Mr. Nobody. But
Damn.
yeah.
No, the Kurt
See,
Russell, Splinter's is the tricky one.
Which one?
I can't talk. Splinter is the tricky one to figure out.
Yeah. I don't know if they really have a Splinter. Jesse, but he got killed.
That's what's wrong with these movies. Well, Jesse was Donatello.
He was the original Donatello, and he got replaced. So, yeah, I'm really excited to get into the more modern movies. Like, this one's not as fun. Like, it really is not. Like, I don't want to say it's not fun. It's just it's not a good movie.
It's a TV movie, man. And what you said about the white dude playing what's he supposed to be?
He's supposed to be like the head of like the face of the cartel in America. Like, he's part of the cartel family.
Yeah,
his name's like
he's
Verone.
not supposed to be white. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was silly, man. And that guy, bless his heart. I looked at his IMDb, Cole Hauser, and he like always plays those characters, like I think he actually plays a cop a lot of the time too. Yeah. But yeah, kind of like a bad cop, one of those two things. He's fine, but like that sucked, man. It feels like such a stock bad dude.
Well, and what's weird about it is like these movies, once you get into like the 6th, 7th, 8th movie, these movies every single one of those made over $1 billion. And one of the things about these movies is they did really well overseas, because as we get later into the franchise and we start building that family and we get the characters that come back every movie, you get more of get more representation and you have more people of color. Okay, and I think that contributes to why these movies do so well later on. And plus, they're fun and stupid action movies or popcorn flicks. But it is kind of disappointing that, this first movie, you have a white guy as part of the cartel.
So that character doesn't come back in the series, right?
He does not, no.
I think they should bring him back. And they could even like comment on the weird casting there. But they leave it hanging they leave it hanging at the end where Brian is like, that dude's going to kill you when he gets out of prison, right? Tyrese is like, nah, he's not getting out of prison. Wait, is he getting out of prison?
Yeah,
Brian's like, yeah.
Yeah, he's not staying in.
One of my notes is that they should bring that dude back for like just a cold open in one of the next movies, and have him like come after Tyrese in the middle of a heist and make things go wrong and then end up dying. That would be cool.
Well, and like there were plenty of times where it could have happened. Like the 4th movie, which I guess is what we're going to watch next, is very much the cartel as well. And like he could have had something in there. When you get into the 5th movie, some of the cartel stuff comes back again. So yeah, there were plenty of times where they could have brought this character back and it would have made sense. But like this movie is just, like you said, it feels like a TV show, like an hour-long procedural where it's like almost like a 21 Jump Street, where they're like, okay, this week we're doing this. You need to go undercover as a street racer. And it's like, they have like the scene where it's like, I need to pick my own team because that guy's a square. And then like the guy's eating pizza and has like a pizza company. He's like, what engine is the best? And he uses the pizza restaurant's name. He's like, right. Oh, I didn't know pizza places make engines now. And then like the FBI guy from the first movie's back, but he's like super friendly with Brian in this, which is super weird because he was like a dick the whole first movie.
Yeah. Like, that guy's very like, deadline oriented, so I kind of buy that he wouldn't hold a grudge. I think he was just like upset that Brian was fucking with his the deadline of his results or whatever, and after it's done he's like, whatever, this kid's nice, I don't give a shit. what did confuse me about the FBI coming back though is James Remar heads up the border customs.
Yeah, he was customs.
So he's customs, and then they bring in the FBI because that dude knows Brian, I guess, so they're kind of working together.
That's exactly what it was.
And then you also have the local police that are not really involved, but once things like escalate in the 3rd act, get involved because there's these massive, drag racing crimes happening. And also the local police had a guy that was on the cartel payroll.
The dirty cop from Batman Begins.
Yeah, exactly. And
Same
also
guy.
Sons of Anarchy. So the local police get involved because that guy is involved with the cartel, blah, blah, blah. So what was confusing is in the 3rd act, you have sort of the customs and the FBI working together in the same room, trying to catch Cartel Carter. And then you have the local police. The local police are kind of fucking things up by getting involved, but I guess they don't know that the customs is running their own thing. Why doesn't customs just contact local police and be like, hey guys, I need you to step down, we're doing something?
Right. Well, and the thing is, this movie takes place post 9/11, when the whole point of the Patriot Act and everything like that was to have simplified communication between agencies to do exactly what you're talking about.
Or even a hierarchy, right? I feel like customs or Homeland Security, whoever, could be like, hey, local police, you're done. You
Get
know?
the fuck out of here.
We're not having a conversation about it. Stand down.
Right.
So it just feels like it was, kind of contrived to have the third act be a little bit crazier than it needed to be.
To go further with it being contrived, like there's this, it's not a short scene. It's a pretty extended part of the movie.
It's the whole third act.
Well, I mean, it is the whole third act, but what I mean, to get to that point, there's a pretty long part of the movie where after the bad guy Verone has Brian and Roman do this tryout, essentially. They do this tryout, and the police almost fuck it up. And, like, Brian's like, are you fucking stupid? Did you not think they were going to make us try out? You think they're just going to give us the job?
Remar from Customs fucked it up.
Remar fucked it up, yeah. I'm calling the law enforcement generally police in this. Gotcha. The law, LE fucked it up. Yeah. The man, the Popo, 5-0, the one time. They fuck it up, and like he's like, dude, what the fuck are you doing? But because Tyrese shot at the cops, they're like, okay, we got some street cred, we're fine. So they go out and hang out at the bar or the club, and immediately Brian and
Eva Mendes.
Eva Mendes, who is, I love her so much.
I was just about, one of my notes is, how do you not fall in love with her? She's incredible. She's so charming.
Totally. Yeah, she's gorgeous, charming, whatever. But they're immediately into each other, and then the bad guy's like, well fuck this history, shit. Right? They don't. They don't know anything about each other.
This movie's confusing.
Yeah, and that's why it's like they literally have like 3 scenes with each other, and all of them are when the bad guy's present, and then like when she shows up to warn him, like she gives him a kiss. Stupid. It's like
that whole section of the movie was so annoying. Yeah,
and it weakens the stuff with Jordana Brewster because he spent a month wooing her.
Yeah. Why did the 2 thugs? Why did Carter send the 2 thugs to fuck with a houseboat in the first place?
Because they thought she was there.
That all happens off screen. Yeah, but that all happens off screen. It's just like, it's so sudden because the previous scene, like right before that, they're best friends. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. So but so like while they're hanging out the night before, to get to your point about how like law enforcement fuck shit up, the local PD fuck shit up, they have this whole scene where they like leave the bar, they go to this like dirty cop's house. They put a rat in a bucket, heat up the bucket to torture him because the rat's going to eat his way out.
That was a really effective scene, by the way.
I thought that was an effective scene. But then they throw that all away because the cop's like, I can't do it. And then he's like, okay, I'm going to do it. And so they were supposed to have this 15-minute window at the end of the movie where they can get from where they're getting the money to an airport where they think that's where they're going. It turns out the bad guy tricked Eva Mendes into giving them bad information, blah, 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 blah. But then the cop immediately is like, oh, fuck it. And then tells the police to go in. Like, he hesitates for a minute. He's like, don't go in until I tell you. And then he's like, fuck it, go in. So then, like, they never even got that 15-minute window. And it's just like, what was the point of that? Like, that character wasn't in it enough for me to care about any kind of redemptive arc. They should have given them the 15 minutes and came up with some other contrivance for why the cops intervened. Because I just felt like it was weak and lazy.
The whole third act of this movie is a mess. Like, the thing I was going to bring up, or the thing that I touched on earlier, it's about all the cars coming out of the warehouse.
Makes no sense.
How do you organize that many people to do that?
So
and they're like, they're driving over cop cars. Like,
yeah,
you know, there are people that are not getting away with what's going on. You know, it's all being video recorded. The cops are there. They're taking down license plates.
Plates, all that.
Like, there are people that are going down. So what are they getting out of it? You know what I mean?
That was my biggest thing. It's like, like, why the fuck would any of these people do that?
They're
especially Tej, when he's like he's got so much to lose. All the street racers have stuff to lose, but yeah, why would they do that for this guy who just moved to Miami like a month ago? Yeah, makes no sense.
No, and I mean, also, how do you get that many cars even in that warehouse? There's 100 cars.
Yeah, it's insane.
I mean,
well, and then like,
how do you organize all that?
You do all that. They have a couple lines of dialogue where like Tej is like, "Oh, I can organize anything." Like, they just say he can organize anything. Like, that's their cop out. And there's a line at some point, they're like, hey man, are you sure? And we don't even know the plan. Like, you know, the audience is supposed to be kept in the dark. We know they have a plan. We don't know what it is. But at one point, Brian's like, hey, this is going to get like escalated. We're actually going to go and do this thing like tomorrow. Do you think you really think you can organize it in time? And Ted's just like, oh yeah, no problem. It's already organized kind of thing. It's like, what the fuck? How the hell? And just no. And none of these street racers are going to go to jail for Brian. Like, it makes no goddamn sense.
Yeah. Another issue I have with the third act is Roman uses the ejector seat to shoot the dude out into the swamp or whatever. Mm-hmm. And then we're like, okay, Brian's going to do the same thing. So we cut to Brian, and Brian is sitting there in the car with the other henchman, and Roman hits him up on the walkie-talkie. He's like, all right, Brian, I did it. It's done. You know, I did the thing that we planned on. So when are you going to do it? And Brian's like, don't worry, I'm about to. He says all of this out loud. The walkie's
in front
out
of the
loud.
bad guy.
The guy is sitting right next to him, and then he's holding the ejector button in his hand. He's driving with one hand, holding the ejector button with the other hand. And the guy's like, I don't notice anything suspicious going on at all. Anyway,
the whole time he's like, you're a really good driver, bro.
It's so silly. And even like they make such a point of the guy saying like, oh, we're actually not going to the airstrip. We're going to a different place. The plan's changed. And Brian's like, oh shit. And then you get like a close up of his hand almost about to push the button and then going down. And I'm like, how you're making such a big deal out of it? How is this guy not noticing that Brian is doing something super suspicious?
It'd be like,
and that he hasn't heard from his partner either.
Right. It would be like if you and I were playing poker and I get cards and I just get like a big shit-eating grin on my face, like kind of thing. It's like, oh, Mike's got some really fucking good cards. I'm going to fold. Like, it's just so fucking obvious. Like, what?
Yeah. And like so you call Katrina over and you're like, hey, Kat, listen, I want you to go to the bank and get ready to deposit a lot of money. Anyway, Alex, are you ready to call? Or
Exactly. Well, and then you get to the end of the movie and like Eva Mendes is on a boat. And they jump the boat off of like the freeway or they jump the car off the freeway onto the boat. And
good thing Brian could see that ramp from 200 yards away, by the way.
From a mile away, around a corner with a bunch of trees in the way. But yeah, he jumps it. The boat just is there. The car lands on the boat, and then Eva Mendes is just like, "You're under arrest." So the guy's like, "Wait a second, like." Why is this guy just like able to be apprehended like nothing? Like we don't see them like do anything that really results in them apprehending the bad guy other than crashing a car onto the boat.
Well, they both have guns. What else do you need? It's weird that his henchmen weren't around.
Yeah,
like,
he had
like,
nobody else on the boat with him. Well, I think you saw like them land on one of the henchmen or something like that, but still, it's just like the guy went down without a fight.
It's very convenient.
Yeah.
Well, he was shot. He was shot and he was disarmed. That's why I don't have a problem with him.
I must have missed that because I didn't care.
He had a shotgun and he dropped it when they landed on the boat with their car. The Dukes of Hazzard.
Oh, how convenient!
He drops his shotgun and then Eva Mendes like showed up and grabbed the shotgun.
Oh, got it. That makes sense. But yeah, this movie's not good.
I will say, Roman makes a point of saying, "You're Dukes of Hazzard" or something like "You're crazy Dukes of Hazzard." And I was like, "Oh yeah, that's what these movies are. They're Dukes of Hazzard." That's kind of cool.
Yeah.
I was watching this movie and I was like, "Oh, he jumped a car onto a boat." These movies have always been pretty crazy.
Yeah.
Like people like to say that they started becoming superheroes in like the fourth movie, and I'm like, no, I think it actually kind of started in the second movie.
The first movie isn't so bad. This one, yeah, with that jumping the bridge and jumping onto the boat. Yeah,
the seeds of the fourth movie are in there.
Yeah, and then having the ejector seats. The fourth movie still, now we're going to go watch it, I feel like was still a little bit more grounded. It wasn't until the fifth movie when they start dragging the safes around where people are like,
yeah,
holy
the fifth movie
shit.
is the vault. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm excited for the fourth movie because I don't remember what happens in that.
That one has when we get introduced to Gal Gadot.
Yeah, I love Gal Gadot.
Gal Gadot.
Wonder Woman in there.
Or Gal Gadot. Whatever. Apparently it's pronounced Gadot.
Yeah, I think it's
I don't know.
We're objectifying a lot of women on this podcast, so let's
Not
talk
really.
about objectifying the men.
Tyrese does have that scene where he rips his shirt off to punch the window, and he looked ripped as shit.
And then Brian makes fun of him because the car is unlocked. I thought that was funny. That was actually kind of like
I did laugh
nice
at
little
that.
nod to how silly these movies are.
I think the thing that made me roll my eyes the most, and it's a scene that I mentioned last week, was how he's driving backwards or in reverse on the freeway at like 80 miles an hour. And then there's another point where he's like, in the first movie, there's a point where when he's getting ready to race for the first time, and it happens again somewhere else in the first movie, where Brian doesn't stop at the right part. Like he doesn't stop right on the line when he goes to race the first time. There's another part where he overshoots it. This movie, he's not looking at the road. He's driving like 90 miles an
He
hour,
does the no look.
staring at Eva Mendes, and then stops like right on the line at the traffic light. And it's like, dude, how is he so good at this? And then like Tyrese is like, oh, I taught him that. He does it all the time. It's his only move. It's like he couldn't have done that in the first movie. Don't give me that nonsense that he's done this 1,000 times.
Yeah, and the premise is that he knew Tyrese before the first movie, right?
Right, because they grew up with each other in Arizona.
I was gonna say I love the old Guido driving the American muscle car.
Yeah, I thought that was weird too.
What is that dude doing drag racing and shit? He's like,
I don't
55.
know. Like they're way too old. Like they're like twice as old as everyone else.
It was weird.
It was
and he was
super
wearing like
weird.
an Affliction shirt or something, or was like
Yeah, it
bedazzled or
was
whatever.
super weird. I don't even know.
And the one guy's
bro.
wearing his sunglasses while he's driving at night.
At night. Like this movie's easily the worst of the bunch. I probably the third movie, which we're gonna watch 7th, is probably the worst movie, but it's fun. Like it takes some big swings, and I'm really excited to get to Tokyo Drift. But I think this is the worst movie.
I was gonna say, did you notice that in the first movie too, but especially in this one, all of the characters, whenever they use the NOS, the like extra boost shit, they're always surprised at how fast they're going.
Yeah, it's weird.
Don't you do this for a living?
Yeah, you've done this like 1,000 times. Like
Yeah,
the only one
like-
who doesn't react to, I would say Letty and Dom don't really react to their NOS. Everybody else like super reacts to it though.
Yeah, like they get it's always the same thing. They get like pushed back in their chair, and they're like, "Oh my god, it's crazy!" And then
I'll
they do,
take
like,
the pushback,
acid
but yeah,
trip
the
lines.
shaking their heads and be like, "Whoa!" Like yeah, it's
The
dumb
jaw
as shit.
drops open and shit.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
it's really silly, man.
I think we've talked enough about this bad movie.
Hey, that one dude in the Mustang, like when they're doing the tryout, he like dies between those two trucks, right?
Oh, no, because isn't that one of the guys who comes? No, yeah, he definitely gets smashed.
Yeah, like
But some of the
concrete
other
truck drives
Yeah,
over him.
but some of the other tryout guys were the ones that they got the muscle cars from later.
That's the Guido and Fabio.
Yeah, but that was weird. Yeah, somebody totally died doing that.
Yeah, that was kind of brutal. The other thing I was going to say about the racing or the scene at the beginning, the race at the beginning, was all of the streets are completely empty, and they're like in Miami.
Yeah, that doesn't happen.
No, like when would this? And they're doing like a full loop of the downtown area or whatever, and they snuck into the drawbridge thing to make the bridge go up. Like, how do you organize any of that?
You don't. Tej can organize
ridiculous.
anything.
It's ridiculous.
Tej can do it.
My last note about this movie, my last punch up, is there's a scene. They have the ejector seats. Roman ejects the guy out, and then Brian later tries to eject the guy, and the button doesn't work. And then they don't talk about that at all later. And I think a way to fix that. I think it's weird that they don't bring it back up, but also like sometimes shit doesn't work, and that's kind of cool to have in movies when something just doesn't work. But I think they could have like hung a hat on that a little bit. But my fix for it is they launch Brian's car onto the boat, and then the movie sort of ends there. But there's a moment after they apprehend Carter when they're sitting on the boat next to the car, and I think I think they're both in the car, and I think the ejector seat should have gone off accidentally and just launched Roman into the water, and then
That would have been pretty funny.
That's the out of the scene.
I think that would have been pretty funny.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was worth watching. Like I said, this was like my least favorite one of the series, but I'm really excited to start getting into the good ones with the fourth one.
Yeah, this feels like the one you got to go through to get to the good stuff.
Yeah,
there's always
the
one
fourth
of those in
one
franchises.
acts as kind of like a soft reboot of the series. So I'm excited to get into that one.
Yeah, revisiting these, revisiting the timeline, I was like, oh yeah, Vin Diesel like wasn't in the second and third one, so when they got him back in the fourth,
He is in the third one.
How much is he in it?
He's a cameo at the very end.
Oh, okay, so that's kind of what I'm saying. When they get him back in the fourth, it's like, oh, this is they're taking a different direction.
Yeah,
with
the
franchise
timelines
now.
make no sense when you get into it because they actually change when you get into like the fifth movie. I think it's the fifth movie when everybody comes back because the fourth movie is just Brian and Dom, really.
Right.
And then in the fifth movie, everybody's back, and they actually change how Roman and Brian met. They actually change it.
That's
So yeah,
So
they retroactively change it.
the third movie takes place in the future.
Yeah, so the third movie, Tokyo Drift, actually takes place between 6 and 7 because of Han.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of crazy, right? It came out
Yeah.
in, let's say, 2003, and
It came out in 2006. I worked at the movie theater when it came out.
Okay,
I
so
saw it.
2006.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. What I'm saying is it comes out in 2006, but later on they're like, by the way, that movie took place in 2010.
Yeah. That's exactly what happens.
It's crazy.
Yep. All right. Well, that was bonus episode done in the can.
That was very, very bonus episode-y.
Nice.
I'm deleting my notes, so
Yep.
boom.
Well, tell our listeners where they can find you real quick, like.
As always, I'm on Instagram at Dysalexic, DYS Alex IC, and I'm on Twitter at Polishi, my last name, PULISCI. I'm also at Polishi on Letterboxd if you want to follow along with what I'm watching.
And check out everything that's MDXpods related at MDXpods.com, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, all at MDXpods. Thanks for listening.
Thank you.